They called him unstoppable. A man who could punch through walls, stare down danger, and never break a sweat. To the world, Chuck Norris was more than an actor, more than a martial artist. He was a legend. But what happens when legends grow old, when the man once seen as indestructible is forced to face the harshest battles of all: time, loss, and heartbreak? At 85 years old, the tragedy of Chuck Norris is far more devastating than most could ever imagine. Chuck Norris wasn't born into fame or fortune. His early life was marked by poverty, hardship, and the absence of his alcoholic father. He was shy, insecure, and often bullied, hardly the beginnings of a man who would later be feared and admired worldwide. But those struggles lit a fire in him. Through discipline and sheer determination, Chuck found his way into martial arts while serving in the U.S. Air Force. From there, his life transformed. He rose from a boy who felt powerless into a champion who seemed untouchable. His victories in karate tournaments, his friendship with Bruce Lee, and his eventual rise to Hollywood made him a household name. Films like The Delta Force and his long-running series Walker, Texas Ranger turned him into an icon. Chuck Norris jokes spread across the internet, painting him as this godlike figure who could do the impossible. But behind the laughter and fame was a man who carried scars most never saw. One of the deepest tragedies of Chuck's life came in 2012, when he faced a crisis not on the big screen, but at home. His wife, Gina, underwent a routine medical procedure that left her with devastating health issues. For years, Chuck put his career on hold to stand by her side, pouring nearly all of his fortune into her care. The man who once stood fearless in front of cameras was now brought to his knees, begging for his wife's survival. "I've given up my film career to focus on Gina," he said. "My whole life now is about keeping her alive." And then, in 2020, tragedy struck again. Chuck's beloved brother, Wieland, who had fought and died in Vietnam decades earlier, was honored in ways that reopened old wounds. Chuck had always carried the weight of that loss, admitting he blamed himself for not being there, for not protecting the brother he loved. That guilt never left him. Even as the world kept celebrating him, Chuck Norris was quietly fading from the spotlight. Age was catching up. The man who once performed flawless roundhouse kicks now struggles with frailty. His once iron body has grown weary, and fans are left asking themselves a haunting question: what happens when even Chuck Norris can no longer fight? At 85, Chuck rarely appears in public. He's withdrawn, focused on his wife's health, and coping with his own physical decline. The silence around him has left millions worried, because the thought of losing him feels unbearable. For decades, he was the embodiment of strength, resilience, and courage. To see him vulnerable now, it's a reminder that even the strongest among us are not invincible. And yet, maybe the greatest tragedy of Chuck Norris's life isn't his fading fame, or his battles with grief, or even the toll of age. Perhaps it's the cruel irony that the man who gave so many people hope, laughter, and inspiration, has lived a life filled with so much pain behind closed doors. But here's the truth: Chuck Norris is more than his tragedies. His story is not just one of heartbreak, but of endurance. He's fought battles most of us could never imagine, and through it all, he's remained by his wife's side, honored his brother's memory, and continued to inspire millions with the quiet strength he carries, even in old age. Still, as he turns 85, one reality remains: Chuck Norris is no longer the invincible force we once thought he was. He's human. He's fragile. And perhaps that is the most heartbreaking truth of all. Because when a legend like Chuck Norris finally fades, the world is left with silence, and the painful reminder that even heroes cannot fight time forever.